Welcome to the Smart HVAC Marketing Podcast, the podcast for HVAC contractors who are ready to quit screwing around and begin growing their business. Powered by Rival Digital. On this show, you'll hear from industry leaders and become equipped with the tools and knowledge you need to build a world-class business. Now, here's your host, Eric Thomas.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Smart HVAC Marketing Podcast. My name is Eric Thomas. I am the host of the show. Thank you for tuning in again. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, just a reminder, we kindly ask that you leave us a review on there if you find any valuable information out of this podcast to help you with your business. And then if you're listening on other platforms and you find value, we'd love to just hear any feedback you may have for us. You can actually reach out to us, podcast@rivaldigital.com, if you have any feedback, if you have any suggestions or referrals for people that you would like for us to chat with. Speaking of which, we actually have a guest on the show today who was a referral from one of our listeners. So we reached out and got him booked. So we are super excited to have him on the show today. And our guest is Rusty Cochran from We Care Plumbing, Heating, and Air. Rusty, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, Eric.
Absolutely. So, Rusty, for those of you, or for those of our listeners who don't know you already, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to them and tell them a little bit more about your history in the industry, kind of the history of your business, and how you guys got to where you are at today.
Well, I started in the industry. My father taught me the trade. He worked for a company, and in the summer, I was able to work with him side by side to help, just whatever, probably get in the way more than help, really, actually. But learned the trade from him, taught me the, hard work ethic and all that kind of stuff, and doing the right thing for the customers. Back then, we were primarily new construction as the company that we worked for, and really just, kept learning and growing. And by the time I was 25 years old, I became the superintendent for the largest heating and air conditioning new construction company in Southern California. And, from there, it just became, did that for a few years, and that then became the general superintendent for the company, running all the superintendents, which is very difficult because, it's easy to get yourself to do one thing, but then when you're trying to get other managers to do, repeat those things and hit KPIs and so forth that we had back then, that's a little more tricky. But, mostly it was all residential. And then they put me into, prior to becoming the superintendent, put me in commercial, and I had no clue about what I was doing there. But, I was able to, I could talk to people without, just PR, basically, kind of stuff like that. I'd have to go to a job site meetings on Mondays with all the trades that were on the school. We were building the La Quinta High School, which is out in the low desert. And it was a lot of, commercial duct and package units. I mean, duct work you can walk through in the gymnasium and the science center and the theater rooms and all that kind of stuff like that. But, really had to learn that quick, because about a month into my commercial background, not knowing anything than doing it, they're asking, go to job site meetings, even though there was people on the job, journeymen smarter than I was. I mean, they would ask me questions, and I'm in there, praying, please God, don't have them ask me any questions. And it was like, how's it going over here and there? And I'd have to go and tell them, I haven't been there yet, Eric. Let me go over there this week, and I will make sure I'll report back to you at the end of today. So that way, I could just, and then they'd never ask you anyway and follow up. So it didn't really matter. I just had to be able to answer these questions in front of about 30, 40 contractors in there and pretend like I knew what I was doing when I really knew nothing. So,
yeah.
So anyway, opened up, while I was there, we got bought by one of the manufacturers was doing heavy acquisition in the buying up heating and air conditioning companies. And ours really never fit the model. It didn't make sense, but they ended up buying a new construction company, left us really pretty much alone except for accounting measures. They changed that, of course. But so as a division of service experts, if I'm sure a lot of listeners are familiar with them. Mm-hmm. And, a few years of that went by, and that was like an opportunity that, I thought I would have had to go either run the company completely or move on to another company to be able to run a service experts branch. But being that we were in that new construction world, they just kind of left us alone and doing our thing because it was a profitable business and all that stuff. And a couple of years went by. I don't remember exactly how many years, but Lennox ended up selling off the whole service expert thing, and then our owner bought the company back. I'm sure for 10 cents on the dollar or something for a less value, but there was really nowhere I was going at the company. So, it was, the owner was great to me. He brought in 3 of his sons. So it was like kind of that dynamic of the family part. And it was, treated like family, but at the same time, it was like, I'm not going to be able to really move up the chain. So, I ended up getting my license with two of my friends. So there was 3 of us, which is, it can be difficult. I don't really recommend it. It's just because you don't want to ruin the friendship. I'm sure you've heard a lot of the problems with that type of thing. And before we really officially launched, I chickened out and then just stayed where I was at. So that was 1997-ish, somewhere in that range, and ended up going a couple years staying at the company, and then ended up opening up my We Care Plumbing, Heating, and Air in May of 2000. And then from, that was just my wife and I opening up, just like a lot of businesses do, in an extra bedroom in the house. And then the garage, that's the office, and the garage is your warehouse, but really it was more like the front of my truck was my office and the bed of the truck was the warehouse. So we ended up, growing the company from that. We were really started off with, again, new construction, because that's really all I knew, and ended up getting it from, just my wife and I. So I'm out there doing the whole field work, the service calls, and then doing, all the installs and the sales and everything else to get us to where we're going. So in about 2000, it was about a year later, I hired my first employee, which is very scary. For those of you that've done it, there's really a couple hires that are a little scary. And one of them is your first employee, just because I'm taking this person out of a company he's been busy all the time. And, he's got 2 kids and a wife. And now I'm going to hopefully be able to support this guy. I take that very seriously to make sure when we're hiring, we are keeping our people busy for the right reasons. And then as we grew, as a few years went by, I needed someone to manage the actual running the installs, the new construction stuff and all that stuff. So I hired my first manager, and that was my second scary hire. Just, we had, whatever it was, half a dozen people, somewhere in that range. But then to hire that first manager was scary too, just because you're relinquishing the duties off to somebody else. And again, can I afford this guy? Can I pay him to do a job that I was doing, already? But in order for us to grow, I had to be out there to sell different projects so we can keep on going. In about 2007, I met a great, really an icon in the industry. Frank Harrison owned the General Heating and Air Conditioning out in the Palm Desert area. And he was an amazing mentor to me, and still is to today. We have a great, almost like a father and son relationship. He's in his high 70s, but somehow I became the father of him. I don't know how that works, but I'm a lot younger than him. But still, he's an awesome guy. It's just, you go to a conference or something like that. It's the end of the night, and they're kicking you out of the bar, type of thing. I got to bring him. Come on, Frank, it's time to go. So anyway, my wife and I, we adopted, Frank and his wife, Charlene. So anyway, it's been a great relationship, but he's a very open book. He was a new construction company that, he was the 3rd largest in Southern California where I worked. We were the largest in Southern California. And he dropped all the new construction completely and turned it into a service and replacement model. So with that, that's where I ended up going out to his office and learning from what they were doing. He would give me everything I would need, here's the KPIs for the industry. Here's, job descriptions. Here's how you do all the, the service and replacement model. And the reason why I was pretty intrigued was for 2 reasons. One, because he was doing the exact same thing my whole background is new construction. So he did that and shut it down and then opened up the service and replacement model. And why it was super interesting to me and anybody else that can probably relate was the fact that that you're always waiting for payables. I'm sorry. So you're waiting for the bills to be, them to pay us, and it could be like a 90-day terms, even though you have pay us right on completion, but they drag it out or you don't get paid at all. Change orders, you didn't get them signed. So, there's just a whole lot of that type of stuff. So the service and replacement model is much more to our liking, where we can actually go in there, get paid, render the services, thank you for my payment, and go to the next one. So, but it was a learning experience. We didn't just flip a switch and all of a sudden it took off. It was, flipping that, slowly going into it in 2007. So really there's a crystal ball that I saw, and the economy crashed in 2009, roughly about a year and a half into this service replacement, learning it. So our revenue dropped significantly. We were doing about 5 million in the custom home world, and then, dropped basically with the little bit of replacements we started doing in service. We were now under $2 million, just because when 2009 hit, as I'm sure listeners can, understand that whole new construction thing went bye-bye, and then everybody's out there doing whatever they could do. So, it just kept growing. The company through it, those were our best years really after 2009. 2010, we just took off, and then, you hit some peaks, and valleys as you're doing it. We got to about a level of somewhere about the 17 million range, and it was, great. We were growing, doubling every year for a couple of years. Can't double after so long, but then we get there, and all of a sudden it just wait a second, we need to rethink this, and that's from process, procedures, systems, management, everything else. We all got to keep moving forward. So, that's what you do. You retool, you rethink it, put some new systems in place, start growing again, and then we hit some more peaks and valleys as you get to another level. So the big thing with that is it's you shouldn't really have to hit those peaks and valleys if you're doing it proactively and looking like here's where we want to be, and put that structure in place. So that's about where we're at. So enough talking, really. So that's where, as we kept growing to about 150 people and 2 locations, and still growing.
Yeah. So what are some steps that you all do to proactively navigate those peaks and valleys?
So there's, I'm not the greatest at all that type of stuff. I'm more of the visionary mind. So I look at things and this is what I want to do, but implementation is always the toughest part. So one thing that's kept us on track, and there's a couple of things actually, it's, for one, it's join a networking group that can help you, meaning that there's so many out there, from, Service Roundtable to Nexstar, ACCA, there's just several different ones anyway. Join something, be a part of something, because the people in those groups, if you can get into a peer group, they're willing to share because they're in the same boat you're probably in, have already done it, and they want to help, and you can help them too. So, that's part of it. The other one is, plan ahead and do a business plan every year. You can do like a 5-year plan, but every year look at that budget to see how you're doing, what to set it up for the following year. And then we have a strategic meeting once a month to go over exactly where we are, from the month before. How do we hit our goals? Did we hit them? And then, what we got to do this month if we missed it, or if we're ahead, whatever that looks like. So it's, following that pace report really monthly. You got to do it daily. We're running a report, but you got to have a roadmap to where you're going. And that's what I'm saying. Like, you really, as we grew, the mistakes that we made was, to me, the revenue part is fun, growing, meaning like, you just see the sales are coming in, your company's going up, but we hit some pitfalls, which was, as the revenue grew, the profit was going down. So you got to really look at those numbers and put those systems in place to make sure that as your revenue goes up, your profit goes right with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that making a plan is usually the biggest challenge that a lot of people face when planning for, the future, which is a great way to, not have to have so many valleys in the, entrepreneurship or in business ownership. Because, what they say is like, what got us here won't get us there. So if you keep doing what got you here to try to get there, well, you're going to hit way more valleys than peaks because, things change. So that's why I'm a huge proponent of like every year, especially like right now, this time of year, like November, early December time, like sitting down for a week and just going through everything and coming up with like a full plan for the next year, a roadmap. And it could change, things always change, but having a plan and then trying your best to stick to it and use that to hold you and your people and everyone accountable.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there was something you said earlier, kind of going almost way back to the beginning of the story when you were a superintendent and then you were like a general superintendent. So you went from managing technicians to managing managers of technicians. Is that right?
Yeah. So yeah, primarily I was running, when I first got into this management thing. I mean, I'm 25 years old, hair halfway down my back. And, really like it was, playing in a band and, I was never a leader in a company before. So, I mean, it was a whole new experience.
Yeah.
The owner was very, he was a tough owner of the company. I mean, it was, I don't want to say a dictator, but I mean, it was very, it was, if you're doing good, you're going to be left alone and, you don't really get talked to really at all, but if you're not, I mean, he's going to be on you. So back then, there was, you got the big brick cell phone type of thing, the mobile one in your car, and then you got a pager, and that was, and a fax machine at your house.
Yeah.
Email wasn't a thing. So, I mean, it was, learning all that stuff. And there's really no training at all. I mean, it was like, here's your jobs that you have, and it might be, 30, 40, it was an area, it was a territory that we had to cover because we're covered most of Southern California. And I mean, it was, here's your folders, here's your roster of your installers that you're going to be handling, and, go make it happen. And then, I mean, that was really what you got. And then if you need me, it's an open door policy. Come on in. I don't know if you ever seen the episode of Seinfeld where George Costanza goes in to go see George Steinbrenner, and he's like, he has a problem, and then George Steinbrenner just starts on him, blah, 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 and then George is slowly backing up, like, okay, sir, okay,
okay,
and then slowly walking out the door, like, okay, bye. So really, I had to learn quick, like, okay, I'm not going to get much help here. I mean, it was, I get your cell phones and pagers, and you're coming in here looking for more, type of thing. Like, no, I need people.
Yeah.
So it was a challenge with that as far as it goes. But again, I mean, like, he was a great guy. Hard. It was just, but that's really how I learned. I mean, you sink or swim. And like I said, I mean, I ended up moving forward, and became the. I had the great numbers for the company, with labor down at 7%, which is pretty unheard of, especially in track work.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and not counting burden, but just labor. And we were really graded on, how much revenue did we do each week and what was our labor percentage. And that was all we really had. So when I opened up my company, I didn't know anything about these key performance indicators and benchmarks and all that stuff. I mean, those are the only two I knew. And it was, if you hire the right people, you don't have to worry about that, but you do.
Yeah.
You do have to watch it. It's inspect what you expect type of thing. So that's where I was, had to learn quick.
Yeah. So what were some of the biggest lessons learned when you first got into management? I guess outside of having to deal with kind of a difficult boss, if you will, and the challenges of of people. I guess what was some of the biggest lessons you learned in regards to like communication and how to manage and deal with people?
I think the hardest part for me was my age, being young coming into management. Everybody was older than me when I first started at the company. I mean, we were a union company on top of it. So they had A-plan journeymen that went through the apprenticeship program that spent 4 to 5 years of their life, twice a week going to school. And now here's this young punk kid coming in, long haired, everything else, and didn't go to apprenticeship school. I mean, there's an A plan and B plan in the union at that time, and I was on the B plan. So I didn't go to the apprenticeship program, but the owner said, we're going to start doing commercial prior to me becoming in management, and said, would you like to be a part of it? And I'm like, yeah, that'd be great. Cause I knew the pay was great. The benefits were way better and everything else. So there's a resolution 78 that you just go down to the union hall and pay whatever it was, $2,300. And I become a journeyman where these other people spent 4 years of their life. And I just wrote a check.
Yeah.
So I got the fast track. But so the biggest thing with that was like them understanding like I was serious about doing my position. And, you know, I mean, I got into like a pushing match. I mean, like literally physical match with one of the journeymen that was twice my age, you know, and they're separating us, you know, on the job site just because, I mean, I was frustrated because I'm like, I wouldn't leave a job like this. This is, you know, you've been doing this long enough. You went to apprenticeship. I didn't. And this is the crap kind of work you're doing. I mean, it was, you know, wrong way to lead a team. But, I mean, but the one thing that they did see was like, oh, this guy is serious, you know, that night or the next day, whatever it was. I mean, he called to apologize because he was the one pushing it, promoting it type of thing, you know, pushing my buttons. How far could they push me? But it was really like just understanding that, you know, I'm here, I'm going to do this to the best of my ability. And if you have my back, I will take care of you. I mean, this will be, you know, and that's really what it turned into being was the guy stayed with me for years. So it wasn't, you know, we got past it, but it was, you know, then as time went on, then, you know, next thing you know, I'm probably more in the middle to the upper part of the age bracket. You know, I was there for 12 years, but starting at 25, I was the youngest starting. And then, you know, as it grew into it. So, you know, it was a good learning lesson from that. It's just people, look, I'm taking this serious and, you know, I'm a driver and that's what I do. I mean, if you're familiar with the disc profile, I mean, I'm a 99D, but a really high I as well. So in an adaptive style, my influencing I will take over my D. But yet, you know, it's, don't push me too far.
Yeah.
You know, but most of the time, I mean, it's all about, you know, a great relationship, and it is really about the culture. And, you know, I take that part very seriously.
Yeah. So what were some of the lessons learned earlier in your career that you carried with you over into business ownership when you started off We Care?
Really looking at the results. I mean, in the beginning when we opened the company, we didn't, you know, it was just, I was happy to sell something because I never was part of sales before ever. The thing is, like I said, I could go to those meetings and talk to the, you know, the other trades that were in there, but I didn't know all the management, you know, or different leadership styles and all that type of stuff like that. I mean, it was really just thrown into something. So, but over time, then you look back on it and go like, oh yeah, that was a valuable lesson that I was able to carry forward. And, you know, I was responsible for numbers, but what that owner really taught me was looking at those numbers, but is also like, I mean, he had everything dialed in down to like the screws. You know, if you're allowed, you know, whatever the amount is, a dozen screws to put together a furnace and coil, then you would get 12 screws. You're not getting 14 screws.
Wow.
The amount of registers that would be in a home, because we're doing track work back then, you know, so, you know, we pretty much have dropped majority, or probably about 95% of the new construction stuff we don't do. So the only thing we do is, you know, some homes here and there, but I mean, it's just not a big part of it. But he really taught all that stuff. So if you had, you know, 12 registers in a house and you're doing a track of, you know, 10 houses and they're all the same roughly, I mean, you have 120 registers. Why did you have 135? Like why did you order more? I mean, so everything was, you know, which becomes an inventory issue with your own company type of stuff. So you watch those types of things. We're not great at all that stuff. I mean, it's just, you know, learning it, but you know what you got to do. And again, I was chasing revenue, not profit. But then you look at it and go like, you know, wow, that material was super high. So, you know, why? And then you start digging into it and going like, well, maybe we put an extra furnace on that job because it was the wrong one and we didn't credit it back. So, I mean, all those types of things is the lessons learned from coming from a company that was very accountable. And I'd have to dig into the job file to find out what happened. And he, you know, he was one of those owners that was before, like, I don't know if you ever read that book, Profit First, where you actually take the profit, you know, this is what you got to work with. And if you can't pay your bills after that, then there's something wrong. You better fix it, which is, you know, pretty smart plan. Difficult to do just because some things go wrong, but at the same time, it makes you aware of like, no, if I want to make, just say easy math, 10% profit, then I take that 10% out up front. We don't do it that way. I'm just saying like it's a pretty genius plan that I'd love to get to. That way you always know what your profit is every month and year and everything else.
Yeah. I think that at least like commercial companies, they have there seems to be a tendency for like large commercials, I guess what I'm getting at, like schools and hotels and stuff like that, of excess supplies and material for jobs. In 2014, I was an apprentice at a commercial contractor in Virginia, and like I had just gotten home from college for the summer, and I was like, they're like, you start on Monday. So I get there Monday and they're like, all right, you're going to be working in this warehouse for like 3 months. So I get there and this warehouse is just like torn apart. There's just stuff everywhere. I mean, boxes from Ferguson everywhere, like just pallets full of pipe fittings and hangers. And I'm just like, wow. They're like, you need to organize this stuff. So like I had someone helping me, but we spent several months organizing this warehouse into like almost like the Dewey Decimal System, like a library of excess pipes and fittings and hangers and stuff like that. And but the amount of money that they saved once they started realizing we didn't have to order stuff for every single job, we already had it.
Crazy.
It was crazy. Yeah, it was bizarre. So, and I feel like that's not always the case with residential, because it's, I guess, smaller jobs, less supply, but
there's which is nice about that part is the fact that you don't have to, you can mess up on one job, versus on a house meeting versus doing a, whatever, $100 million high rise courthouse or something, whatever it is, the mistakes, you can absorb it on one job versus one huge, massive job.
Oh yeah. So moving kind of into the we care side, kind of the main topic that I was wanting to hit on too earlier, was some of this stuff with customers and keeping them engaged with your company, and then some ideas for, kind of cross promoting services to them. Because it's something, a lot of HVAC companies also do plumbing, or they also do electrical, or some even are just a full blown home services provider and they do crawl space encapsulation and all that other stuff. So what are some good ways that you all have engaged your customers? One, to keep them coming back for, your service year and year, over and over again, but also been able to engage them into other services that you offer.
That's a tough one because, typically like our plumbers are separate from the heating and air side of the world. So, and then if you're doing, like we used to do, we were doing solar, we're not anymore, but, so getting that cross selling can be difficult because they're all different people and they're only really, not all, but, you're worried about yourself getting your job done versus cross selling. So, I mean, what we would do is, incentivizing your people in the field to get a turnover. That's whether it's in your own, to get a service turnover to a sale, to get a turnover to a plumber to come out, or to a solar lead or whatever it is that you do, windows, electrical, whatever that is, spiff the person that's going to get that turnover from there. That's on the outside of the, in the field type of thing. Mm-hmm. And then internally, because a lot of the customers won't even know that I didn't even know you did plumbing. You've been doing my heating and air for the last 10 years. And, so it's important to do that. They're already your customer, and hopefully they already love you. So if you can get them to buy from you other items, you don't have the competition. You're not worried about the marketing to go after those people, but you do have to stay in touch with them, like you said. So, I mean, we're just sending out, like there'll be Thanksgiving, now it's easier because it's email. Before, you're either calling or direct mail or something like that. So now it is a lot easier than just what we were doing a few years back. So, I mean, if you put on, doing that, newsletters about your company, but then also give them a discount, $50 off your next plumbing repair, and you just did a heating and air, and you can hand the customer a card or send them an email about that cross-selling that you're doing. Really, I mean, those are just some simple ways to get back into the home. And then, I mean, constantly saying what you do in your name and having it out there too. Obviously, if you're promoting it on a billboard or TV or whatever it is, I mean, make sure you're saying, whatever it is you do. We've always joked because the side of our building was getting longer and longer, was weak air, plumbing, heating, air, solar, and tacos, it just kept going. I mean, we were selling windows and turf. We were doing a little bit of everything. Wow. And then ended up just dropping it all and focus on what we do, which is the plumbing, heating, and air versus all these other items. And the reason why I jumped into that is, for one, that entrepreneur brain, but on the other side, we had a financing program that allowed you to write it off on your property taxes. So that's basically went to the wayside. That doesn't happen anymore. So all those trades that everybody was doing, well, for us, I can speak for us, we just stopped doing them just because it wasn't really in control of us. We were counting on subcontractors. So now we just do what we do.
Yeah. So what are some ways that you all keep your customers around, like long-term, to be long-term customers versus just having them for, an install or to go and repair, a running toilet? How do you guys keep them engaged and coming back, I guess, like for like a long-term period?
I mean, maintenance agreements are the key to that. To us, we have found it more difficult to get it on the plumbing side, to get a maintenance agreement to come out there, but we do it once a month. And this is another way to get back in the door. So of course, we sell you a maintenance agreement on the heating and air side. Typical heating and air company goes out twice a year, once in the spring, once in the fall type of thing, if you can. So that way, shoulder season, you stay busy also. Mm-hmm. But if, let's say, we didn't have a plumbing maintenance under that same category, then we would call you up saying, hi, Eric, this is Rusty with We Care Plumbing, Heating and Air. When you signed up for the heating and air maintenance, you've also got a free plumbing visit. We're going to drain your water heater and check out all your faucets and so forth in the home, and then just do a plumbing inspection, on a separate maintenance agreement type thing. So it's like, okay, it's a free one, but it's only because we're not busy enough and we're looking for calls that we're going to send a plumber out to that home. Because if we capture, what you want to do is, if you're going out on heating and air, you want to capture the age of the water heater, or vice versa. The plumbers out there, if they can take a picture and get the serial model numbers of the unit that's out there, then we know to market back to those people, so we can get in the door with them on the heating and air side. So we're just sending out a free plumbing inspection, basically, even though they didn't even know they had it, because they really didn't. It's just a way to get in the door because our plumbers need work.
Yeah. I think, if you're listening to this right now and you're looking for, and you have a plumbing division at least, and you're looking for like the one little golden nugget to take away from this, I would say is to include a whole home plumbing inspection to your heating and air conditioning maintenance agreements. Because like Rusty was saying, like there's so many more elements to a residential plumbing ecosystem than it does for, heating and air, because you got faucets and sinks and drains and toilets and water heaters and all this other stuff. And if you're on a slab, then that's a whole nother nightmare that the yearly plumbing inspection can help with. And so, offering that, even if it's like, $99 whole home plumbing inspection or $88 free or whatever you want to do, getting in the door, you will typically either find something or at least be able to make your customer aware of an issue.
And you can do the same thing even with the electrical side too. I mean, because it's, say you're just a heating and air and electrical. You don't do plumbing, but you do electrical, or you do all the trades, all three of them. Mm-hmm. You could do the same thing, or even a roofing inspection, whatever that trade is. If you're looking for leads for your technicians to stay busy, send them out for a roof inspection, send them out for an electrical inspection. Hey, this was included in your maintenance, whether it was or it wasn't, it doesn't matter, because what I'm trying to do is just get my people in the door and then see if they can do anything with it. Maybe they can't. I didn't pay my bill. Hang on.
Yeah. There you go.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
So really, that's it. I mean, just, you've got to have the opportunity, and you've already serviced that customer. And again, hopefully they're happy with you, so you can get back into that home, and they'll use your company for all this, whatever it is that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Well, Rusty, there's a few more things I wanted to hit on. We are big dog fans here at the Smart HVAC Marketing Podcast. I believe that using dogs in your marketing is top 5 smartest things you can do. People love dogs. Anything with a dog typically does well in marketing. So, and I've heard that you are you have a dog that you use for your marketing as well. So what kind of inspired you to do that? And how often do you engage, I guess, animals in your marketing collateral?
So we've used his name is Teddy Bear. He's a golden doodle. I mean, really, out of all the dogs I've had, this is the smartest dog. Listens great. What kind of dog can go to the bathroom, both 1 and 2 on command? I mean, it's, you're going to go for a walk. This dog's smart.
Yeah.
Probably too much information, but I'm just saying, this dog is.
Yeah.
Goes outside after peeing and then comes running back in to get in the house and just point your finger and he goes back out and does his business. But anyway,
that's awesome.
I mean, like you can put, clothing on him or sunglasses or whatever it is, and he's like a paid actor that's you don't have to pay except for food.
Yeah.
I mean, he's in a lot of the advertisement. I got this actually. I went to a marketing class. So to your point, and it was we named him Teddy Bear just because he looks almost, when he gets groomed, he kind of look like a lion sometimes.
Yeah.
But anyway, when he's a car dealership, a Chevrolet dealership, I think it was on the maybe that show The Prophet with Marcus Lemonis, if you've ever seen that show. But anyway, it was a Chevrolet dealership. I think it was from there. Maybe it was a conference. But anyway, they were giving away a teddy bear on every car you bought. They gave you this bear, so we started doing the same thing. I ended up buying a couple thousand bears, had them our, shirt, with our name on it, on the bear. And, we would give them out to potential customers, or if we go to give them away at children's hospitals or something like that. You can, during the holidays coming up, we can give these bears away, anything like chamber commerce events and all that kind of stuff like that. And it has our tag on it, made in the USA. It's got We Care Plumbing, Heating and Air on it, so now it was a nightmare getting them. It took me like 2 years, but and then we did a trademark on it and all that type of stuff.
Oh wow!
To protect us, from it, because it was teddy bear. Was it Teddy Bear, Care Bear, something like that? So you got Care Bear. So it was close to the Care Bear thing, but we weren't even going after that thing because it was a totally different look. But
yeah,
anyway, the dog is friendly when he's not here every day at the office, but when he comes in, one of the gals came into my office last week or the week before, like seriously, and she's like, "I'm mad at you," type of thing, and I'm like, "What? When's Teddy coming in? He needs to come in more," because you can be having a bad day and you see the dog running around the office and it just makes everybody's day. So
yeah,
he's good for the culture. They love having him here. And again, he's a very cheap paid actor. So,
yeah,
it works. People love him. They want to see him.
Give him a few milk bones, pay him in milk bones and treats and stuff like that. Awesome. Well, Rusty, I appreciate you joining me today on the podcast. What's a good way for our listeners to reach out and learn more about your business?
You can go to our website is wecareteam.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Rusty Cochran, under the We Care, and then or email me at rusty@wecareteam.com. Either way, one of those three will should be able to connect me to it. All the information's on the website and everything anyway. So, but anyway.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Rusty, I appreciate you joining me on the podcast this morning, and I hope you have a great rest of your day and an awesome Thanksgiving.
All right. You as well. And thanks for having me.
Yep. All right. Take care.
Okay.